Hello, everybody. It's been a year. Once again, joining me, Matt Piscatella, Executive Director of Video Games at Circana, but also Video Games Thought Leader. What's a thought? What is a thought leader? What does that make you?
It sounds super pretentious. Well, hello, Kyle.
Extremely, yes.
It sounds crazy pretentious. It just means that I'm the guy people email and call when I say something silly. No, it's really about trying to take all of the data we have and telling stories about what's happening and why and what's coming next. So not just looking at the data itself, but then also taking that data and figuring out what it all means. So that's kind of my job, and that's a very interesting title I have. So.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, it is pretentious, but it's like the reason why I'm so curious to talk to you today because of what you do, because of the data you have and your skill at analyzing it and interpreting it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's great to be back chatting with you. I've always enjoyed these conversations. People seem to dig them, so hopefully they'll get a lot out of this one too.
So just earlier today, Valve made some big announcements. There were some murmurs and whispers, you know what I mean? I guess we could have seen it coming, but all in one day, the Steam controller, the Steam machine, which is a console essentially, and the Steam frame, which is a VR headset. I would like to know, like, where do you even begin to forecast the impact that this hardware might have?
Right? Like that's my next job. In the immediate time, I've just been kind of excited about it. I was a very early adopter of Steam Machine 1.0. So I had
so those were back in like 2012. Yeah, when were those?
It's been a minute. It might have been about 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, that was crazy.
They had like there was a big Acer one that looked like a giant Xbox 360. I had that one. I also had like the Steam branded Steam machine. They were not great devices and really awful to use, but I mean, it was early days. So I'm just kind of excited to get back on that horse. Still have a Steam Deck and all that. Right now you look at the market and you look at what Steam's been able to accomplish in the hardware space, how they've designed an ecosystem that seemingly Microsoft and PlayStation want to emulate in a lot of ways. They're really, Valve is really leading the way on a lot of these direct-to-consumer ecosystem type initiatives. And this is just the next step in that. And, this is a really good opportunity for them to get into the living room, get into the office, even offer alternative PCs to people. Like, there's a lot of opportunity here. If they can get it in the hands of people, let people know what it's all about and price it the right way.
And so you believe these will never be in stores when you say direct to consumer, it'll always be just straight from Steam?
I mean, I'm still waiting to see a Steam Deck on the shelf at Best Buy, and I haven't been seeing that yet. So we'll see. I mean, at some point, if you really want to scale, you have to get it into retail. But so far, they've been happy not doing that and kind of saving that margin, I guess.
I mean, you've said many times, the console wars are over. And yet here I see Valve making a console. I don't know how else to interpret it. It is a PC. Technically, it's a small square PC that lives beneath your television right next to where a console would go. And so, like, I'm wondering, as you say, like, it doesn't seem like they even want an Xbox level success. What is in it for them? What do you think they get out of something like that?
I mean, it's absolutely an ecosystem play. I mean, they've done better than anyone since 2004, having people stay in that ecosystem. They've fought off all kinds of competition trying to enter the PC digital marketplace, from the big publishers to other storefronts to other massive tech giants. And they still dominate the space because they've offered a better product to consumers, and they've really developed a strong relationship with them. So this is really, them extending further that relationship they have with their player and, trying to bring it to more people as well. So yeah, the console wars are over, but the ecosystem wars have been going pretty darn strong now.
They're raging. Because I'm thinking about that as like, it immediately has more exclusives than like the entirety of all the other, you know what I mean? Like, if you actually like consider every PC game an exclusive, like there's so many that are just immediately accessible the second you plug that in.
Yeah, and the question is like, are they going to be able to make that experience as easy and pain-free as possible to attract those people that have traditionally just decided to play console because they were always kind of scared of that PC thing? Maybe they're able to crack that nut and finally make it just an alternative for people to play their 20-year-old libraries so long as it works with Steam OS or whatever they decide to do with the box.
Yeah, I don't know if this goes into like any element that like, you get into analysis of, but I think what's really important about it and impressive about it is how simple it looks. It's just a cube with one strip of light, right? And I think that simplicity is part of the entire message of it, right? That the idea is like, look how simple this thing looks. It is this simple. Just put it up in your TV. And so like, I find that really impressive. And on top of that, the marketing, I'm kind of like crazy about like how something is marketed, how they present it to an audience. It's not getting marketed to a broad audience. I guess like the thing I would point out is that when they're talking about like the scale of this thing, there's a banana on top of it, right? Which is like a Reddit meme. So like the thing is, this isn't like a big commercial. It's not going to be on TV. It really is, as like the product itself is direct consumer, so is the marketing. And I find that so crazy. But it seems to be all like part of whatever Valve's into, with their whole thing that works for them.
Yeah, and it worked with Steam Deck. They've built a really strong, I mean, it's still a small, it's a niche audience. You're talking about very enthusiast weighted players. The Steam Deck has not sold, millions and millions and millions of units, but it's done really, really well, especially for that type of device. And it's expanded over time. Like if you look back 5, 10 years ago, just people, especially like, people in games, press, and media, like they would generally be console forward. Now you see so many more people like, oh, I've been playing this on my Steam Deck or I'm playing it on my PC. And it's just part of that simplification and that more friendly way of trying to get people into the PC space. And it's been working. And it's a long play, right? Like they're not trying to overwhelm people and get people to go from their Nintendo Switch right to PC, but they're like, hey, look at this cute little thing. This isn't intimidating. Once you get to this point, come on over.
I mean, there's no way anybody could guess. But I think obviously the next thing is pricing is really important about this. So do you think they could go hard on this, or is it necessary for them to make this fairly expensive? I guess is my next question.
They can do anything they want because they're Valve, right? And they own the distribution channel for this, which means they're not paying any retailer margin on this thing. So they have a lot more leeway to do what they want to do on the price point. So it's going to come down to how many they can make. They have two models. They have that base, what is it, the 500 gig model and the 2 terabyte model. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discrepancy there. But if you look at how they price Steam Deck, their entry model is a very attractive price point, especially when you look at competitive devices. And they have a premium option that is priced as a premium option. So my guess is they'll do that. Now, what that price point's going to be, I mean, I'm going to have like 4 different scenarios, like 400, 500, 600. Like they're going to figure out one of those and go with it. But tough to really guess on that right now, given what we know at the moment.
No, that's interesting, even hearing that you come up with multiple scenarios instead of a range, right?
Hmm.
What is that? So like to our viewers and also to me, who's just curious, what does that mean to come up with a scenario?
So every forecast that's worth anything is done on a base set of planning assumptions, right? For a game, for example, you assume, okay, it's going to be such a genre on so many platforms, released at such a time frame, or in a time window at such a Metacritic score with so many YouTube views. You quantify your assumptions, which then allow you to have a forecast that you could then go back later and say, okay, we assumed all these things, which would mean a forecast of X. But if you went from an 80 rated game to a 90 rated game, for example, this other forecast would come into play because it's weighted on different assumptions. So having just one forecast would mean you only had one set of assumptions. And if any one of those assumptions goes sideways, all of a sudden, your forecast is nonsense, which they're kind of nonsense to begin with because you can only describe so much variability between potential sales results based on the quantifiable factors. There's a lot of just a game's a hit because the game just did something unquantifiable. It reached an audience in a way you can't put a back of box line item on, right? Classic video game
Hmm.
forecast stuff. But yeah, that's the thing is you have your set of assumptions and then you build a forecast and then you at least go, okay, hey, this is the number and it's grounded in this.
Cool. I'm going to want to talk a lot more about those forecasts as we keep talking about these things as they come up. That's really interesting to me. Last thing I want to talk about actually with the Steam stuff is the controller, because Steam they also put out a controller before. It exists, it's out there, and then they just kind of stopped making them. And so it's kind of weird for me to see them like do it again. It's got a new design, right? It seems very informed by what's working with the Steam Deck. And so I know you track a lot of hardware with Circana as well. Do you think the Steam controller could become maybe not default, but eat away from, the default of the Xbox controller on PC?
Well, the first one had a very loyal following and still does with the haptic.
Are you in the following?
I have one. I
Uh-huh.
do not enjoy using it.
Okay, good to
But
hear. Okay.
but
The
if
way you said that, I was like, he loves this. Okay, got it.
no, there are people that really like it, especially those that can play mouse controlled type games like RTS or whatever on that platform. I can never figure it out, but yeah, with what they've done with Steam Deck, like the idea is they've been able to refine that a lot and make it so it'll be more intuitive. Hopefully, I love how it kind of looks like a new version of the old Microsoft or the Xbox Duke controller way back in the day. It's kind of like got the
It's
same
big.
vibe. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
honker. So I don't think it's going to really make anyone that was going to use a dual sense or an Xbox controller all of a sudden like go, I'm going to use this instead. But hey, maybe. And it sure is a lot better for some types of games than the traditional gamepad is. So we'll see. It never really caught on the first time in a mass market way, but again, like you have that super enthusiast group of people that really love it. So hey, maybe that's all they need.
And I realized just as you were answering that, it was my assumption that the Xbox controller is a default PC controller. Do you have data on what most people use on their PCs?
Yeah, and Xbox is, but DualSense has been really, gaining a lot of ground in recent years.
Huh.
But yeah, it's the
No,
Xbox
yeah,
controllers far and away.
I know it's compatible, and they talk about it too. Like Sony's like, hey, you can use your PS5 controller on your PC, and I just figure like nobody does, but it's interesting to think that it's out there. So I want to talk a lot about 2025 stuff. It's been a weird, wild year,
Oh,
right? Uh, One thing you pointed out to me that I think is really interesting. You came into this year with a prediction, obviously, that the games industry, the business would grow because we assumed GTA 6 would be coming out this year. And then when it was delayed, you had to be like, okay, it's not going to grow. It's going to shrink this year. And that was your half year prediction, your post delay prediction. Is
so
what you
in
call it.
June,
Yeah.
after it was delayed in May, and of course we had all of the tariffs and the macroeconomic situation, the chaos and
Yeah.
policy. Yeah, it's been a lot.
And so what's crazy to me is you're saying is that like, yeah, you were expecting it would shrink, but it doesn't. It's actually been outperforming your predictions.
Yeah,
And I'd love to hear about that.
yeah. So coming into the year, it was everyone was really excited about what we were looking at for this year. Like remember the whole survive to 25, and once we got to 25, we'd have these big games come in, the market would go up, we'd get more investment in, we'd be able to kind of hopefully slow down on these layoffs, get more money coming into the gaming world in terms of development investment, and that didn't really happen the way we thought it would. GTA got pushed. All of the chaos happened around the tariff situation and the ongoing changes and basically daily changes in what everyone's assumptions are in terms of the macro environment. And so it was in the middle of the year, it was like, okay, well, you take all these factors into consideration, and we're probably looking at about down 5%. So like a 10-point swing. But since then, what we found is a few very interesting things happening in terms of consumer behavior that I personally wasn't expecting. And right now, I have a forecast of down about 3%. So far, spending this year is up 2 by the end of September. We're reporting October next week. But I definitely now see a path to growth, especially with Battlefield, with the holiday of Switch 2. And we have Call of Duty tomorrow, and that's going to tell a lot of the story on its own. But there's definitely a path to growth, and we're seeing some areas of spend really overperforming what we thought they would this year.
There's so many follow-up questions I want to ask just out of that. So let's start with the one that just came to my mind just as you said that. You're coming up with forecasts, right? You're coming up with scenarios. And so like with Call of Duty, I have to presume like, is some of it based off of like, hey, if this reviews poorly, it won't get as much revenue, or reviews like not a huge factor for Call of Duty games?
So it's really super interesting. And, people really don't like that publishers look at things like Metacritic score, right? Like, oh, who cares? They shouldn't bonus based on Metacritic. And
Right.
I mean, yeah, yes, but when you're trying to quantify a forecast and you're like, okay, what are the things we can measure that would impact the ability of our game to sell? Something like a Metacritic score is still one of the best ways of predicting that. Now, I'm going to caveat that and say,
Please. Yeah.
okay, it gets all into the statistics here, but there's a coefficient of correlation, basically R squared if you ever take a stats class, which says that, okay, this one factor can explain such and such a percent of the variance between two different numbers. So for example, if you look at something like a Metacritic score on a game, now that change in Metacritic score could account for 25 to 30% of the variability between two titles, which is very low. It's not very predictive. So really you'd want like, if it's 99%, then you could say, okay, this change in game critic score will result in this change of volume or sales. Right. And you can't do that.
So if a game gets a 90, you could like the ideal would be if a game gets a 90, it'll make like 5 million extra copies or
yeah,
whatever,
a
right?
90 RPG.
But that's not reality.
A 90 M-rated RPG, and you'd be able to nail it if your coefficient of correlation. I know this is really a number. If that number is really tight or really strong, then you can predict very easily. In gaming, we don't have any of that. Like we can basically, you take every quantifiable number you can apply to a game, platforms, release timing, install bases, whatever. You can explain basically 35% of the difference in sales between two titles based on those quantifiable factors. There's so much of what a game can sell that's just unquantifiable. It's the magic of a game hitting versus a game missing. It's that game's good and that game's not good. That's not quantifiable, right? So anyways, that's kind of how you do that when you're looking at something like a game critic score.
So yeah, that's what's interesting, right? Because what you said was like if. You said like maybe there could be growth if Call of Duty hits. And right now, as it stands today, we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know if it's going to hit or not, and I find that really interesting. I have to assume you know what Call of Duty's floor is, though, right?
Well, so you with something like Call of Duty or Madden or any of the annualized games in particular, you have so much history there. Like your sample of past titles is so strong that you go like, okay, we should expect this to this or this to this based on something like a Metacritic score. But I mean, obviously, over the last couple of years, we've had some big curveballs there when it comes to the inclusion on things like Game Pass, what that's meant to the share of where the game is selling and how much, and all of that stuff factors in. So it makes it a lot more difficult. But Call of Duty is the biggest franchise in the U.S. when it comes to premium video games. So, that's a two-sided coin. On the one hand, you go, okay, we have a lot of history. This is a huge game. We know it'll generally do X to Y. But if it misses, if Battlefield ate its lunch, if Arc Raiders is making people not want to buy it, if people had a bad experience last year and they're going to pass this year and wait for next year, if it misses, that could have a really inordinate impact on the overall performance of the gaming market in the holiday quarter, just because of how big Call of Duty is.
I was kind of curious about that in particular when you brought up Arc Raiders and Battlefield 6. If that even like goes into your calculations, the idea of those games hitting, does that actually reduce your expectations for something like Call of Duty that's like in the same genre almost?
It can. It really depends. Yeah, just how close the games are, how close the audiences are. But again, so much of it is unquantifiable.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. obviously Arc Raiders is an entirely different genre, but it's got a similar kind of vibe where you could imagine like it's a hot online game for people who like to pull a trigger and shoot a thing, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's the like, yeah. How much of that audience going to cross over? How loyal are
Yeah.
they to a particular brand? And it differs between like the more like the very enthusiast game players, like Arc Raiders Day One, hell yeah, versus the more mass market consumers. That's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just know I buy Call of Duty every year, and so I'm just going to buy that again. Like, so you have that
Yeah.
mix too.
That's really interesting. It's funny to think of like how much when you're talking about the percentage of the growth of the business this year, the games business, the market, how much of like Call of Duty is still there. But I want to talk about the second thing you mentioned, the Switch 2, which to like, you know, just reading the headlines, just seeing what Nintendo puts out there. It seems to me to be doing ridiculously well. And what I wanted to ask you is like, is the Switch 2 doing ridiculously well?
Yes, it's the fastest selling console all time in the U.S. That's really
that
impressive.
seems crazy, right?
That's crazy. It's really impressive. It's not something you would forecast, so obviously it's beating our estimates, pre-launch estimates. They've made a lot, which has really helped because that's the number one thing you need to do. If you're going to sell the most consoles all time in the first few months, you have to make the most consoles all time in the first few months. So it's kind of a qualifier to even get there, and they've done that. If you go into a store today, you're going to find a lot of Switch 2 available. I think if people walk into a Target in Christmas week, they are going to be very likely able to buy a Switch 2, which in past years, you never would be able to do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's positioned well for success. The only question is, you know, my question is, have they pulled forward demand because of the availability to where holiday might not be as big as a normal holiday? It's really tough to say. If they have the units and the demand is there, it could have a record-breaking holiday. If it doesn't, then you know it won't. So I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm guessing it'll be pretty good. It's done super well, but will it continue to do so? Hopefully, we'll see.
And so we're talking about forecasts, right? Does something like Metroid Prime 4 even get added to the equation, or like is that really just like that's you know a fraction of a percentage of why the Switch 2 will be a success or not this holiday season?
I would not put Metroid in the franchises. I think would really generate incremental sales of the hardware. Pokemon, absolutely. Cart, the bundle, absolutely. Metroid, people buying Metroid, they already got a Switch 2 for the most part. Like these are the real, really diehard Nintendo fans that are going to be playing that this year. So it's going to do well without audience, but I don't know if it's a mass market driving title.
So Pokemon is weird to me in that, you know, the numbers they've put out, Nintendo, it seems to be doing really well. Despite the fact that it's like a weird offshoot game that takes place only in one city, it doesn't even seem to matter. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it's people are enthused and like ready to buy it for some reason.
Well, and Pokemon's the biggest media property around right now. It's leading in our toys tracking. The trading cards are one of the biggest drivers of the entire toy industry right now. The Pokemon cards, it's broken all containment from the video game world in terms of the franchise strength. So yeah, it's the best-selling physical game of the year so far already. And it's only been in the market a few weeks, and yeah, it's going to be one of the big drivers of the holiday quarter.
Just a weird aside: how do you forecast the Lego Pokemon crossover coming next year?
I haven't even done that yet.
Okay. Because here's the thing, like I was thinking like, oh my god, he's talking about like, you know, the Pokemon toys just are still like doing crazy. It's like, oh, think of Lego Pokemon, but then also like I saw a leaked image of what the Pikachu looks like, and I'm like, oh, okay, I would forecast down a little bit, because it doesn't look right. There was something weird about that Pikachu. It could have been a fake leak, but anyway, it's funny to think about like all the factors that might come in there.
So much is happening. Like I'm treading water trying to get this year out the door and kind of dabbling in next year. It's there's so much happening right now that I'm a little backed up on my long range planning.
Do you ever talk to the thought leader on toys at Circana?
Oh yeah, that's Julia Lynette. She's been doing this a very long time, really well respected in the industry, really knows her toys, and I try to help her out with some video game insights. She helps me out on the
Yeah.
trading card side, what's going on with things like licensing with like Pokemon shirts and Pokemon backpacks were one of the best-selling backpack lines a couple years ago. It's pretty wild. Yeah, we do all that stuff.
That's interesting to me. What's looking hot in toys for this year?
The what are those? The Uba Goobas, whatever those. What are those called? The Uba Boobies or whatever.
Labubu's.
Yeah, those things.
Labubus.
Those things seem to be pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I don't really keep too close a tabs on that. I let Julie worry about that.
Yeah, it's funny.
But yeah, I don't know. I keep hearing about Labubus and
Yeah, talk about hard to forecast. Who saw Labubu's coming?
man, like that's a whole different world. Like, Squishmallows were a thing for a while. I don't know if they're still hit. I don't know, man.
Sure.
I got my own problems.
Yeah. Again, we were talking about how hard it is to forecast the Switch 2 being the best-selling console of all time, especially considering like the weird economic phase everybody's in here in 2025, where like I would also forecast down because I wouldn't think there'd be as many people spending money on video games, but for some reason there's just more people spending money on video games, and so I'm curious about your insights on that.
Yeah, that's been one of the big lessons I've learned because what we've seen from consumer behavior is very different than what I'd expected. And hey, we're always learning, right? And that's the key. Couple of things have really happened here this year. So we have what's called a K-shaped economy happening. And what that means is that because of changes in the marketplace, for example, things becoming more expensive, particularly in everyday spending categories like food and housing. We talked about this a few months ago, how these areas of spend have really gotten more expensive. There's been a separation in the spending patterns of folks. So the people who are more affluent, they have more money, they're continuing to spend as if prices haven't really changed. They're spending more, getting less, and they just keep going because they're in a position where they might not even realize the prices have gone up in some of the areas. On the other hand, on the down part of the K, people with less money are really struggling. They're finding buying things like groceries, paying the rent, very, very difficult. And so they're pulling back and changing their spending patterns in a pretty extreme way. So we really have a haves and have-nots, and the spread between them is getting bigger.
It's data of rich getting richer and poor getting poorer is
Yep.
the K, right? It's just, and there's just nobody in between.
Yeah, and so what we're seeing is like the people on that who are a little less affluent, I think, or my hypothesis is, they're the ones that are spending a little bit more on subscriptions and not so much on buying new games. They're leaning into things like PC and mobile and free to play and Fortnite and Roblox rather than spending $70 on a new video game. Whereas the more affluent people, they're having no problem spending $70 on Ghost of Yotei or spending more on a PlayStation 5 than they would have, or buying a Switch 2. Like, so we're really having, and that's why I think you're seeing higher prices being absorbed on things like subscription services, why I think you're seeing premium devices like the DualSense Edge doing very well, because those people have money and they're spending it still. The other thing we have going on that's really quiet, that's really wild, is something called quiet inflation. And what quiet inflation is when there are categories that people purchase infrequently, like a video game console. They're not really paying attention to the price like you or I would. They are jumping in, they say, hey, I think I want to get that Switch too. And they're just going to buy it. And they're not going to realize or put in their decision-making process that, hey, consoles used to cost this. They used to get cheaper over time, and now this is this. They're not doing that. They're like, I bought a Switch 10 years ago now. Oh my God, 10 years ago or 9 years ago. And now I'm buying this one, and okay, that's just the price. And they don't see that. So it's kind of like that, what we call a quiet inflation is when these prices continue to creep up or shrinkflation comes into play, and people just don't realize because they are not paying attention.
Like with the PS5 case, that it actually the console, the exact same console, is becoming more expensive is kind of crazy.
Yeah, or they're reducing storage capacity and charging the same price, whatever. Like people just aren't.
Right.
Most people don't pay any attention, or the Game Pass price went up. A lot of people won't even know. They'll just keep on paying it and probably won't even notice it happened.
And I guess what's kind of scary is we're learning that this year, right? I don't think like it ever goes back. You know what I mean? Like, here's the thing. Traditionally, we would say consoles become much cheaper throughout their lifetime, where like you get a GameCube for $100 by the time it's on its way out, you know? And it kind of seems like maybe console manufacturers are learning now, oh, we don't never have to lower the price, and there's no negative aspect of that. Do you think that's the lesson being learned right now?
Well, it's insane, right? And it's just so counterintuitive to what we would think and what we've known over time. I think, yeah, I think one of the other things that's really coming into play now is this, like, what I'm calling like a post-generational console environment where backwards compatibility is so strong, where games like Fortnite can be played on PS4 still, or older device types, where you don't really need to have the latest greatest to play the games you want to play. And so I think there are now additional options for people across the spectrum where if they want to spend less on a device, they can play on the PC that they already own. They can play on a PS4, or they can upgrade to a PS5. Whereas in the past, you had to go to the next system in order to play the games. So I think there's a little bit of that too happening where like, okay, well, we'll just keep these prices high. These things are still selling. We're still kind of having people on these old systems too. That's cool. Oh, hey, we're going to put our games on a cloud service. And oh, hey, we're going to put our games on the other consoles or PCs or whatever. And we're going to serve more people that way. And that seems to be working out okay so far.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something you're kind of touching on here. And another, I feel, 2025 story is, I won't call it a collapse, but I'm going to call it a collapse. The collapse of Xbox hardware, I think, would also have been hard to forecast, right? There's a couple aspects I want to talk about that, but at least for now, what can you say about like historically, like is it a steeper decline than Xboxes are used to, or am I like inflating the story itself?
It is slightly steeper than we've seen in the past. I think it's
so not a collapse.
No, I think though that there is a possibility it could get steeper going through the holiday and into next year. We're gonna have to wait and see. We've never seen a console manufacturer mid-gen go, you know what? We were doing things this way for the past 20 years. We're gonna throw that in the bin and hey, we're doing something else now. And they've had after Call of Duty made it to Game Pass and didn't impact hardware sales, after Call of Duty went to Game Pass and it still sold incredibly well on PlayStation, and Xbox was what Xbox might have been anyways. I think they went, okay, look, like we don't need to do this anymore. We can maximize our opportunity by taking our games everywhere while also offering a specialty box for people that want it and having these partnerships. But this is a dramatic change in strategy. And so sure, like I think we're going to see that lead to, significantly lower series sales, at least until whatever it is they're doing next is announced. But yeah, this is a very, very wild time.
That's what I find interesting is I think like part of it is like a growing disinterest in the brand or platform, right? But a part of it is also just like they're not marketing it as hard. They're not spending the money to market it, and they're not discounting it. Like they could make it cheaper to try to compete or anything, and it seems like they're not interested in doing that either.
Yeah, they bumped the price up. They bumped the price of the consoles up. They bumped the price of the Game Pass. They're like, hey, if you want to play, like I saw that quote from Phil Spencer today about the announcements of the Steam machines. Like, heck yeah, we welcome into the environment. We do great on PC. We sell a lot of games. They're like, all right, cool, man. Like,
yeah,
it's like if people want to play on these devices, I'm assuming they're going to make a premium device, Xbox branded. That's probably going to be the best way to play those games. But if you want to play on a PC or whatever the hell else you want to do, they're going to try to make that good too. But I think they're going to have that premium option, but I don't think it's going to be a focus.
Yeah, I think that stuff is wild.
It's absolutely wild. It kind of blows up the entire idea of generations and what we've been doing for 20, 30 years now.
Yeah, and so when you say subscriptions, I always only think of Game Pass. And you say subscriptions are growing. What else is out there that's like doing well?
Across the board, Switch Online, PS Plus, also seeing growth. We're seeing growth on many titles in the PC space. Star Wars, what the hell is it called? The Star Wars MMO earlier this year had a really nice run of growth because of some of the initiatives they were doing around that property. Like we're just seeing more of the
The
audience.
old one, the Old Republic?
Yeah, the Old Republic had a nice
No way.
spending growth surge earlier in this year around some of the promotional
That's
activities of Star
crazy.
Wars.
Wow.
And you can look at some other, MMOs and stuff that we're seeing that happen too. I think my hypothesis, I don't know if it's true. I think we're seeing people really looking for value with their gaming dollar, and they look at a subscription service or an MMO or something, and they go, you know what? It's better for me to put my money here than to buy a new game I may or may not like for 60, $70. I don't know if that's true, but in terms of the consumer behavior, we're seeing more people go with subscription services, at least for now. We'll see how it goes over time.
Another thing I really want to talk about in the span of 2025 and what a weird year it's been is the the cost of a video game.
Yeah.
Right. The idea that like there were people upset when Silk Song is $20. There was the potential that all Xbox games are going to be 80 and then they had to walk that back, you know what I mean? Outer Worlds 2 was going to be an $80 game and then said, okay, we're sorry. It's not. Like all these things are really interesting. So I feel like the price of video game is kind of like a big story of 2025.
Yeah, the variability, like the wide range of offerings. I know, like we were hearing all kinds of things. People were upset, rightfully so. Like, hey, these games are getting too expensive. Game key cards, another area where people are not happy with what's going
Sure.
on. I understand, but I think what we're seeing is not just the high end in terms of the price points becoming more regular, and we're seeing a few of them. We're not seeing as many as I think I would have expected, given the conversation earlier in the year. Like you said, a lot of titles
They
have
said
pulled back.
you could pre-order an $80 game. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, never mind, it's fine. But on the lower end of the scale, we're seeing a lot of games break out like I don't think we've seen really before. Like you mentioned, Silk Song, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. I mean, Dispatch. You could go off a whole list of games that did not launch at that premium price point that have done super well. But in order, like in terms of gauging the sales performance of games, we've seen success on the high end. We've seen success on the low end. We've seen failure on the high end. We've seen failure on the low end. But yeah, like all of the rules on pricing have just been kind of blown up with how easy it is to change pricing in a digital dominated market.
Yeah, I'm thinking about stuff like Peak, like Mega Bonk, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like small studios doing incredibly well. And I wonder if that only works because of the size of the studios. I wonder if that's worth emulating for larger teams and larger publishers, or if they have to just say we'll never be Mega Bonk.
Well, I will never be Megabonk, I'll tell you that. I don't know if a big team can ever do or have the agility of a smaller team. I think that the teams have to do the things that those teams are capable of doing, and do those things as well as they can. I don't think there's any path to success that's clear, or any path to failure that's clear. And you mentioned a lot of those smaller games that are really breaking out this year. We also have to consider whether the hit rate is any higher than it has been in the past, meaning the percentage of smaller games that actually do find a breakout audience or do find an audience that's significant enough to be considered a breakout hit. Is that percentage getting higher? Or are we just continuing to get more and more games every year and the same or a smaller percentage of those games are breaking out, but they're breaking out in a bigger way? Because, we have this proliferation of smaller games being released, particularly on platforms like Steam. So like, you have to, just like in anything in life, you got to do what you do well and do that really well and succeed. And I don't know if a big team can do a small team thing. I'm not sure.
Let me ask you something. Does appearing at the top, I feel like appearing at the top of the Steam charts just feeds your own success, right? Because you talk about there's so many games that come out. I feel like just having that data right there that you could just see, like, what are the most people playing right now? I feel like that's the best advertisement you could possibly have.
Yeah, it's the virality, right? That's the placement on the front page. That's people talking about your CCUs. That's just part of the building. Dispatch, great example. Started relatively small, got people talking about it. The audience starts getting bigger. People go, wait a minute, what's this game? Then the audience gets bigger. And we've seen like a significant increase in the audience for Dispatch with every content drop. And that kind of
Yeah.
signifies that building momentum. And that's what that kind of data will help do.
I saw a Blue Sky post you made about this. I'll put it up right here, right? The idea that like TV shows would be jealous of this, that each week they actually like they spike higher, right? I think that's incredibly interesting.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to see what the data looks like on Thursday or Friday when I get that data for the data drop or the content drop today.
Yeah. And again, there's nothing else like Dispatch that's hit like Dispatch has. Unpredictable, right? You couldn't. There's no way you would be like, oh, that would have 200,000 concurrent users. This episodic story-based game. You know what I mean? It's not like the other ones.
Or you go back to Helldivers 2 or Power World or Arc Raiders even. Look at any other extraction shooter, man. They're not doing Arc Raiders numbers. Tarkov, maybe a little bit. You can kind of make the connection, but Arc Raiders has been on a different scale. You even look at a big game like Battlefield 6. Which will be, at some point this year, the best-selling Battlefield game of all time in a couple weeks.
Wow.
Like, you would never predict that. But that's kind of the magic of gaming, man. That's what makes this industry so fun, is that it's not predictable, and it's what keeps me engaged and excited about what I do.
Yeah, I you know what else I was wrong about was Skate. EA had insanely high expectations for Skate, and I said, like, your moment's past, it's not going to work. And then somehow, like, Skate, it did launch really well, and I was, like, looking at it, it's, like, still doing okay, right? It's still, like, in those top 20s of people using them, and it's just a skateboarding game.
It's just, you're just messing around in a big sandbox, right? Yeah. You wouldn't... like, why would you... What Skate game... Like, so Skate 3 was probably the most popular skating game 2 years ago. And that came out how long ago? Like, but that's the thing, right? Like, people make games that they're passionate about, and they do a good job at it, and then an audience shows up. It's what makes, especially smaller games, and not, I don't know, I'm not saying Skate's a smaller game, but some of the smaller games we're talking about, like, these are games that don't really have benchmark comparables. You can't go, hey, like, this game happened, we'll make a game just like it. That's not what's breaking out these days. It's like people having really fresh takes on things, and it's great that those games are finding an audience.
All right, so this holiday season, your guess, I'm going to guess you think Call of Duty is still the best-selling game in the U.S., yeah?
I have to until it proves otherwise.
Yeah. What's number 2?
Well, I think Battlefield's got a really strong shot at that. It's had a really great launch. Very strong hold on players. They've been doing a great job managing that game so far. So I think that's going to be up there. NBA is probably going to be up there. Pokemon, if you included both physical and digital, will probably be up there. But I think that's what we're looking at is a Call of Duty Battlefield kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people want to hear that, like, this could be the year Battlefield beats Call of Duty. Like, it's still, it would be kind of really difficult to happen, right?
Exceptionally difficult in the U.S. market. Battlefield is the game that FPS enthusiasts on PC love. Call of Duty is the game that mass market console players love. And the mass market audience is a lot bigger than the enthusiast market. Now, I'm not saying that only people play Battlefield on PC. That's not what I'm saying. There's plenty of console players on PC, or on console players on Battlefield. But in terms of the overall appeal, Call of Duty still owns that console market until they don't. It's been decades now where the best-selling game of every year in the U.S. is going to be a Call of Duty game unless it's a Rockstar game. And that one weird year...
Next year, we know it's number 1.
Yeah, one weird year that Hogwarts Legacy was number 1. Other than that,
that was so crazy.
It's been Call of Duty every single year. Call of Duty's been the best-selling franchise for 20 years now. It's wild. So, when it beats it, then I'll believe it can be beat.
I just realized it is something I should have said from the beginning. Circana is U.S.-focused market. We haven't mentioned that up to this point. You said NBA third, though, which was, like, crazy to me.
Oh, NBA has been a really big franchise now for a while. growing over time, super strong presence. Madden also super strong, but the thing with the Madden titles when it comes to the rankings is that the sales are now split between Madden, the EA Sports MVP bundle, which includes Madden and college football, and the kickoff bundle, which includes Madden and college football. So we track those three things separately. So
That's funny.
yeah, it's just one of those technicalities in how the rankings are done. But the big sports games, the annualized sports games have been great. MLB The Show's had a really great year too. It's going to be the second, or it's already the second best-selling MLB The Show game in history, behind only 21. Of course, in 21, it was the first year it was on multiple platforms, and it was 2021, which every game just sold better that year by nature because of where we were.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, those kind of games, they're still doing great.
That's wild to me. And we should also mention, right, when we're talking like number one, number two, number three, we're also talking about revenue, not just necessarily unit sales.
Yeah, our charts are dollars, and it doesn't include all games. Nintendo Digital, for example, is not part of our panel. Although,
Right.
I'm looking at ways we can try to address that next year. We'll see how that goes. Yeah,
That's a scoop.
yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, we can figure something out. Yeah, I'm working on it.
So I'm sorry, when we talk about like NBA in this case, then do you also talk about the revenue they make by like continually charging their players to buy more things inside the game?
Yeah, on our best-selling title charts, we just focus on the game sales.
Got it.
The recurring revenue is a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah. And then who's the champion of recurring revenue?
Well, I mean, Fortnite and Roblox.
Yeah, still?
Yeah, Roblox continues to grow. Roblox, so if you go to the store, right, you go to Vons or Safeway, whatever your bag is, and you go to the rack of gift cards, and you'll see like there's the PlayStation card, there's a Microsoft card, there's a Roblox card. The Roblox card is the best-selling gift card in the market.
No.
It outsells Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, all of their gaming stuff, and it's growing at a double-digit pace. Like, kids are asking for Roblox gift cards, and they're getting that a lot for when it comes to games these days.
That stuff is so crazy to me because do you have to like, do you do research into like how like Roblox works and what those Robux even like go into,
No, we don't. That's a bit of a black box.
Because it's like with Fortnite, it's clear to me, right? Because like, hey, I need that skin. I need to be Bart Simpson in a robot suit. So I spend my V-Bucks on that, and like, Roblox doesn't have anything like that. In fact, you can just plan to spend Robux within like one little environment just to make one thing like go faster. And then like you never play that little environment ever again. And that money's just lost,
It is its own beast. Roblox is an ecosystem in and of itself. They want to be the biggest video game platform in the world. And they're significant to say the least.
What's crazy is I know this sounds crazy. I need somebody to tell me I'm crazy for this. I don't think Roblox wins in the end because they have no iconic image. You know what I mean? The Roblox guy is just a Lego guy. So like I've in my mind, we were talking about like Pokemon being, the number one kids franchise or whatever. I forgot what you called it. What is Pokemon number one?
It was the
merchandise?
The number one entertainment franchise.
Entertainment franchise. It's because of its iconography, right? Like it's because of Pikachu. It's because of these faces and these characters that you can see, in my opinion, right? And so like the idea of like Roblox having none of that and still being this wild success runs so far against everything that I believe, it's just so weird.
Yeah, from the public facing thing, it does. But I think if you talk to any 10-year-old, they'd be able to go into detail about exactly what is the hot thing in Roblox that makes it so appealing. I don't know either.
Yeah.
But alphas, man, Gen alphas, that's a whole universe of their own. It's wild to see it continue to grow at the rate it is, especially considering all the other things going on with that thing at the moment.
Yeah, I try to get I just can't. I try to understand it as somebody who's like, yeah, if this is the biggest thing, maybe I should. And I'm just like, ultimately, I'm like, no, Roblox is dead in 5 years. It has to be. It can't last. But then it keeps proving me wrong.
We'll see. Well, what dies first, Roblox or AI? I don't know.
They seem hand in hand.
I don't know.
And like, they belong in the same part of my brain. You know, it's like the same nasty, dark purple side of my mind that I don't like to touch.
I don't
It's
know.
so
I
weird.
don't disagree.
Yeah. All right. Last question to you. Let's talk about 2026. And you're not even beginning to forecast. You say I gotta deal with my 2025 forecast still. But like, what is your overall, I guess, enthusiasm or pessimism? How are you feeling about 2026 at this moment?
I'm actually feeling enthusiastic. I think with GTA 6 is going to again be
We say this every year.
say it every year. GTA 6 is going to be the biggest factor, whether that's
Yeah.
in or out of the year. But with the momentum of Switch 2 in year 2, you now have the Steam hardware coming into the marketplace. We're going to have a bunch of assumedly really good games. We'll hopefully be past this transition of Xbox where it can start getting back on the path to growth. They've done really well on the services side, but they're transitioning for sure. Perhaps they can do that, and we still have people super interested in gaming. And so hopefully, we should, if Grand Theft Auto stays in the market in the year, we should have the biggest year in U.S. spending all time in the video game market. So it's hard to feel pessimistic when you're projecting to have the biggest year ever.
Wow. Cool. Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate this conversation.
I always love chatting with you, and I hope we didn't get too in the weeds there, but always fun.
You definitely said some things that are over my head, but I know the audience will be right on top of it.
We'll see. Maybe they'll be able to explain it to me.
All right, thank you. Have a great rest of your year. Good luck with everything.
Right on. Thank you.
All right, sorry. I just thought of one more question that I really wanted to ask you. And that is, you have all of this quantifiable data, right, when it comes into your forecasts. Do you ever watch a video game trailer and then dip the forecast just because, like, you didn't like a vibe?
I won't say no. So there's a lot of art to the science with this stuff.
Yeah.
Because so much of it is unpredictable. If I have to apply my own judgment on some things when I'm doing this stuff by nature. It is not all objective. There's a lot of subjectivity as well. So if I get a bad vibe on a game, if I go, yeah, that's not going to work, or that messaging is off, then I would be more pessimistic about the potential of a game. Sure.
That's what makes you a thought leader.
And probably apply my own personal bias on the upside sometimes. Like we can't get away from our own personal biases, even though we try to account for them. Sometimes they come through, even though we don't know they do. And that's just part of being human. And until the AI machine overlords take over for everything I do.
Yeah, no, I get that. I like that you call it an art, right? Because I think there is something like intuitive about it that a machine wouldn't pick up on exactly.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that game looks great. Why? Well, look at it. It looks great. Like, okay,
Yeah.
Why? What about it makes it look great? I don't know. It just looks cool. You know what I mean? It's like that thing you can't really quantify about a game.
Heck yeah. All right, thanks for the bonus question.